Hello! Drugs in Rimworld are very overpowered. They can keep you awake, working all through the night, increase your movement to an ungodly speed. They even have the ability to turn you into a temporary super soldier. But these drugs are for babies in comparison to our main attraction. Named after the literal devil himself, Luciferium turns colonists into avatars of hell and even has the ability to regenerate injuries. At the cost of one teeny tiny thing. It kills you if you don't take the drug every 6 days. It can't be manufactured and is very rare, so taking it is almost like making a deal with the devil. And today we're going to venture through Rimworld's Odyssey DLC, searching for a cure for this dangerous drug. The rules for this challenge are quite simple. Our main colonist starts off addicted to Luciferium, but this is no ordinary Luciferium. This brand of genetically modified drug was obtained from an ancient mech hive and is so dangerous that if a dose isn't taken every 24 hours, our colonist dies and we fail the challenge. This Luciferium requires 6 times the normal amount, so we'll have to be quick on our feet to keep up with our supply. The goal? To overcome 4 of the most difficult challenges Rimworld has to offer. And we gotta do all of this as a solo combatant. But I'll tell you what, dear viewer, in my desperate search for more and more unhinged content, I decided that this simply wasn't enough. So the cherry on top of this ramping retardation is that with every defeated boss, it will inflict our protagonist with a new drug addiction that will kill them after 24 hours. Can we keep up with the increasing demands to convert our body mass into performance-enhancing drugs, or will our protagonist fall under the logistics of keeping his drug withdrawal at bay?
Choose your character.
Who is our protagonist taking on this colossal task, I hear you ask? Well, the only one strong enough to do it. The one and only God of Gunplay. But his gateway drug was carbohydrates and sugar. Welcome to the story of Tom Thick and his search for the cure to Luciferium. Day 1 starts off with the ship's engines being fried, giving our team 10 days to scout out our surroundings and find some more of the elusive drug, Luciferium. But it also gives us a chance to introduce our colonists. The main protagonist today is Tom Thick, an ex-military type with a unique take on Rimworld's combat. You see, he isn't like other colonists on the Rim. His training and acute reaction to Luciferium has granted him the ability to not roleplay as a paraplegic in combat. That meaning, we've installed a couple of interesting mods that overhaul the combat in various ways. Most notably, the ability to move with W, A, S, and D using the mouse to aim our shots, rather than, you know, getting shot in the heart through your cataphract armor for no apparent reason. Very cool, but also very necessary if we're going to overthrow these custom bosses all on our lonesome. But lonely he is not, as Tom is bringing his trusty dog companion, but perhaps more importantly, the second character on our adventure. Whilst I did say that this was a solo challenge, Tom's butler Alfred will be handling most of the ship's needs and colony progression, but poor Alfred, he's but a frail old man, and thus is incapable of doing any combat. However, he does have a background in showing off to minors. Both our colonists today are baseliners, but through the act of liberating citizens from the clutches of Mecha Hitler, we can use our onboard gene factory to optimize Tom's combat capabilities throughout this playthrough, and then lock up anyone strong enough to survive. Because yes, that's right, we will not be recruiting anyone outright in this adventure, we'll just be enslaving them instead. And what better place to start than our local ancient danger? Whilst Alfred uses his exceptional base management skills, we'll use this opportunity to showcase Tom Thick's combat expertise. For you see, Tom is skilled in precisely one thing: shooting people in the fucking face. With just a revolver and his trusty knife, Tom's Luciferium enhanced skills are able to easily take down the first of our hostiles. Granted, they weren't much of a threat, but they were suffice to showcase Tom's murderous talents. Which leads us on to the first problem of this challenge. You see, it's already day 2, and that means Tom's Luciferium need has entered its first withdrawal cycle. This will remove the current benefits of being affected by Luciferium and replace them with intense pain, lowered consciousness, and a high chance of going berserk. Oh, and death. Yeah, that's also a pretty bad one. Luckily though, we're starting our adventure with a small loan of 2 million Luciferium. Oh no, sorry, that's 2 Luciferium, giving us a couple of days to search for more before we fail the challenge and Tom's flabby gut rests upon the dampened soil of defeat. Which brings us to the spoils of our ancient danger, and the reason we're watching this particular save. After many restarts, many practice runs, and many off-screen bandit camps, it was this one that rewarded us with a small stack of 6 Luciferium in our starting ancient danger. So it's this run that has become the true canon event. Alongside the Luciferium, we also released 2 prisoners. One immediately died from what I can only assume was breathing in thousands of years of recycled farts, and the other must have some sort of fetish because they only collapsed unconscious. As Tom and his trusty dog haul them back to the ship, we can take a quick look on the progress Alfred has made on its expansion. A small kitchen, food and storage areas with 2 bedrooms, as well as a secure barracks for the recruitment of our incoming slaves. We lock them up and finish the foundations of our ship. This would take us the next couple of days to achieve, consuming 2 more of our precious Luciferium, but in exchange earning us a brand new slave plus a bunch of homely utility. But Tom is a crack fiend for this Luciferium, and our current supply would not last us forever. So after researching pemmican to take on our journey, we stock up and set out on our first excursion onto the world map, but not before Randy Random offers us a trader with a donkey. Perfect timing and probably the best luck we'll have throughout this entire run. And the nostalgia, what a hellhole this is, eh? Reminds me a lot of the first flat I rented after finishing high school, except it's got a distinct lack of crack addicts. Oh, no, sorry, that's Tom, isn't it? He's the crack addict. Our goal right now is to secure a small supply of Luciferium whilst the thrusters on our ship prepare for launch. So what better place to start than by murdering not just the men, but the women and the children too. 6 bandits only wielding bows, 4 buildings full of delicious loot, and what's that? They're moving to attack me immediately? Well, then it's just self-defense, so don't mind if I do. And short work we made of them as they started fleeing after only 2 kills, with only taking a single arrow. Sadly, no Luciferium was to be found in this makeshift camp, but we do have a plethora of colonists to knock out and bring back with us. And hey, this guy over here with the smashed in face has a pretty good plant skill with a double passion, meaning we can use him later to secure our future drug needs. Pillaging the remaining loot, we head back to our ship and set up our new slave for recruitment, pushing our Luciferium supply down to just a measly 4, and
How on earth are we going to survive?
I hear you ask, and dear viewer, let me introduce you to a core mechanic of this challenge mod. You see, when a grav ship lands in Odyssey, it has a chance to go into a randomized recovery state, lasting between 6 to 12 days, I'm not too sure. Come on guys, the DLC's new, at least give me a chance to play it. But when the recovery state is finished, we can then launch the ship across the map at the cost of some chem fuel. But here's the difference in this custom challenge. Instead of just launching to a new location, we are given a choice. Do we want to engage the next boss, or do we want to continue exploring for Luciferium? As this is only the beginning of our chronic meth addiction, our compulsion to seek additional Luciferium is our primary objective, despite the adverse consequences. So the obvious choice would be to saunter aimlessly around the map looking for more drugs, but that is some pussy shit, boy. So instead, we're gonna slap our dick on the table and ready the ship to engage the boss. With the first boss defeated, we've earned ourselves a few rewards. The first and foremost is a brand new way to cave in people's heads, in the form of the Alpha Thrombo's horn. We also get to butcher a bunch of corpses for our efforts, but most importantly, a kilogram of crack. With the intent to protect our budding slave ship from this harmful drug, we immediately consume it ourselves, inflicting us with the next stage of this challenge: high-powered Psychite addiction. And in hindsight, rushing to the first boss may have been a mistake. Now that we're inflicted with 2 addictions, we need a steady supply of Psychite as well as Luciferium throughout the remainder of this run. And that's fine, I guess. It's only Psychite after all, but in my hubris to push this challenge forward, we were nowhere near prepared for this. Or were we? Well, I'll be honest with you guys, I skipped over an important excursion we made before I actually summoned the Thrombo King. You see, prior to taking off, we were surrounded by 5 friendly settlements that are available to trade with, so I made sure to check every single one to legally purchase all of their hard drugs. This excursion took an additional 2 days to complete, bringing us down to 2 Luciferium, but in exchange, Randy blessed us with a vendor who sold 14 Luciferium and another who sold a nice supply of Psychite tea, to which we drained the remainder of our silver to purchase as much as we could, meaning we can keep our Psychite addiction at bay, at least until we begin a more permanent method of sustainability. Bringing us back to the present, our next step of our journey finds us crash landing in an undisclosed location surrounded by various forms of post-apocalyptic orgies. We got a group for all types of fetishes here on the Rim, from herds of drug-addled animals, tribes of demon-worshipping goths, there's even hives of slime-covered insects, but most dangerously out of the bunch is this world's dominating faction, an advanced mech hive whose primary goal is exploring your anal canal. However, before we throw ourselves into the jaws of oblivion, we need to talk about these combat mods. Despite what it looks like, I'm not actually invincible, moving around and dodging bullets like Neo. The standard Rimworld rules still apply. As you can see, despite me being well out of the way of this arrow, it still registered the hit because I was out of position when they fired it. So it's less about moving around like a schizophrenic League of Legends player and more about using the freedom of movement to reposition myself correctly. In addition, with our new Thrombo horn, it's a great time to introduce the second of our combat mods, called Simple Sidearms. This allows me to equip Tom with a second weapon and freely swap between them in combat, giving us more options to take on these camps and compounds. Speaking of compounds, after spending the next 3 days hitting various nearby settlements, we acquired some interesting loot. Some Psychite tea, a machine pistol, a new grav core, and 3 additional slaves. One with excellent crafting skill, and the other 2 with decent plant skills to go with BB, the first slave we got with that fart fetish. And this would be a great time to explain why we need such an emphasis on plants. Listen up, class, it's time I taught you about the long-term plans for this slave ship expansion. In order to run this joint smoothly, we need a steady supply of 4 things: drugs, food, chem fuel, and power. And all of these can be solved through one particular research: hydroponics. By building an optimal hydroponic setup, By building a slightly unoptimal hydroponic setup, we can now begin the process of feeding, powering, and fueling the ship. How do we do this? Through a piece of technology we were already given on our initial grav ship scenario: the biofuel refinery. Each hydroponics houses 4 planting spots, meaning if we plant rice in each of these, it'll give us way too much rice to eat, so that's the food need secured, hopefully indefinitely. The surplus rice could then be thrown into the biofuel refinery to create an infinite supply of chem fuel, so that's the fuel need secured, hopefully indefinitely. But what about power? Well, rice is converted to chem fuel at a ratio of 2:1. So if our 90 rice plants are producing 500 rice per batch, that's 250 chem fuel. How long does it take for rice to grow in a hydroponics? Well, from my tests, it seems to be roughly about 2 full in-game days. So every day, we're making about 100 chem fuel if we're accounting for mistakes, botches, and potential delays within the planting process. This massive surplus of chem fuel can then be used to power our ship using a chem fuel generator, hopefully indefinitely. But that's only 3 out of the 4 of our needs. What about our drug production? Oh, very true. Well, in order to keep on top of our ramping drug addiction throughout the remainder of this run, we need to dedicate quite a large number of these slots to Psychite leaves in order to satisfy Tom's daily drug needs, and also fund ourselves for purchasing Luciferium. So for now, we'll only dedicate 2 of our hydroponics to Psychite leaves, and expand this when we finally research the drugs lab and expand our ship with another grav core at a later time. This unfortunately means our first recruit, who has a chemical interest, is far too risky to keep around, as she too will develop a daily Psychite addiction, and in this economy, we just can't sustain fart sniffers. So, sorry BB. With another 6 days gone by, our Luciferium supply was back down to a measly 2. So we hit the remaining nearby settlements for potential trades, and much to our surprise, the nearby pigskins were willing to part with another 8 Luciferium in exchange for most of our junk. And after taking another day to fully heal, we are left with 9 total Luciferium. So let's push this challenge forward and launch the ship ready to attempt the next boss. Okay, so clearly we're not ready for the next boss, so instead let's take a detour and see if we can find a solution to these problems. What we need is more firepower, better armor, and maybe something to deal with that impid fire breath. Using our first random landing site, we set down surrounded by a whole new set of loot boxes to pillage. And from this point onwards, I won't be showing the entirety of the exploration. I would instead just summarize the loot we find and progress made on the ship during that time. We obtained a second grav core, enslaved another 2 colonists, and killed a raider who dropped 6 Luciferium. During this, we also hit 2 more ancient dangers, rewarding us with a whole slew of interesting items, as well as trading for an additional 12 Luciferium from a passing exotics good trade ship. This cycle took us a total of 15 in-game days, and we even obtained a fireproof gene from one of our slaves, very useful for this upcoming boss. Tom injects the new Xeno gene, putting him into a coma for 2 days, which is spent recovering from the wounds that he sustained during the last 2 weeks of pillaging. During this time, Alfred administers the drugs that he needs, and we take a step back to count our inventory for the next step. With a shotgun in one hand and Thrumbo horn in the second, we gear up to attempt the second boss again with a full set of flak armor, a jump pack that we obtain from another bandit, and snorting in a fresh supply of Yayo and Luciferium, ready to re-attempt the boss. With the second boss finally defeated, we can regroup back at our ship with our loot. Loot that consists of a pile of rotting corpses, which we'll promptly ignore in favor of our main reward, initiating the next step of this drug-fueled challenge, inflicting ourselves with our next deadly drug addiction. And Wake Up is a very interesting one. Although it has no inherent effects related to filling people with lead, It instead offers a lot of powerful utility. The most impactful for our playthrough comes when combined with Psychite, essentially meaning, from this moment forth, Tom is as efficient as the mechs we're facing due to his new addiction keeping him from reaching exhaustion indefinitely. But this benefit doesn't come without side effects, of course. This isn't normal wake up, is it, my friends? Oh no. This is high-powered wake up, and thus we need a daily intake of this drug. However, the risk of using this drug too much comes with the small chance to straight up give you a heart attack.
I've fallen.
So yeah, eventually we're just gonna die at some point and the video will be over. And that simply won't do, so we'll just code out that little side effect. But that still leaves us with the overarching problem of this entire challenge. We now need to somehow find a way to supply 3 essential drugs every day. This isn't impossible, of course, but the process now requires an item called neurotrimine. No, that's not right. Neutramine, an ingredient that isn't growable or craftable. We need to actually go out and look through it through either quest rewards, sacking raider camps, or the easiest method, purchasing it from the settlements who aren't sitting loot boxes. But to do this, we need a steady supply of money. And I know what you're thinking.
Just sell the junk that we get from the raids.
And yeah, that's a great idea, except the junk we get is literally worth pennies. An entire gun sells for the same as a single Neutramine.
Shut your stupid...
However, there is another route we can take, and it's one that we already set in motion in the previous chapter. Psychite leaves are essential for making 3 things: tea, flake, and yayo. All throughout the previous chapter, we were purchasing tea from the settlements, but now that we're 43 days deep into this challenge, we've built up a small stack of Psychite leaves. Selling the 2 variants of the Psychite drug, flake and yayo, are some of the most efficient ways to make a steady income of silver in Rimworld. Luckily, with our setup and the second grav core that we found, we can essentially create a self-sustaining cycle of silver production, covering the cost for Neutramine as we take our trips out to sell our yayo. This also means that we can now easily afford our Luciferium whenever we find it. The only challenge is, actually finding it. I expanded out once again, creating a second hydroponics network, as well as using the spare space to create an efficient drug-producing room. A couple of shelves dedicated to Psychite and Neutramine, 2 drug labs with the correct work orders set up, and some tool sheds for increased efficiency. All that's left is to set up the schedule so everyone can work in tandem. Yeah, it's not always that easy though, because our Luciferium supply was getting low once again, so we sold the 28 yayo that we had produced for a respectable sum of 400 silver, and we hit all the nearby raider spots, netting us another grav core, a very good replacement slave with a double passion in crafting and plants, as well as a whole bunch of random junk that we sold for another 600 silver, bringing our total caravan value to 2,400. We then used this to purchase another 28 Luciferium, and we spent the rest buying 73 Neutramine, which we can use to produce 36 Wake Up. This excursion took a total of 9 days, allowing us to relaunch our ship towards the next boss. However, if our last boss has taught us anything, we are grossly underprepared for boss fights, so we'll instead pussy out and work on solidifying our economy. After 12 additional days exploring our new location, we sold 81 yayo and our pillaged loot for a total of 1,800 silver, finding 3 more Luciferium on a raider, and purchasing an additional 7 from one of the nearby 2 settlements. We also found an excellent quality Hellcat rifle from a raider, and combined with a nice stack of bioferrite we looted from the pile of rotting corpses after the previous boss, we can get some serious use out of the Hellcat rifle's fire cannon ability. Perfect for the next boss. However, the continued delay would not go without risk, and before we could set off for the boss,
Fucking slaves, get your ass back here!
our slaves decided they no longer enjoyed forced labor or eating dead rats, so it's time to introduce the downside of owning slaves. You see, although slaves are easier to manage, they do have the downside of having to manage another system instead, a slave rebellion. Luckily, this one was fairly easy to deal with due to Tom's ability to, Persuade, but this only works when Tom is at the ship, and now with his wake-up addiction, he only needs to return to the ship to use the medical bed for healing. That means our ship is basically defenseless, and although the first rebellion was lucky enough to have Tom at the ship, we can't afford to have another, so it's important to prevent future rebellions, and the 18th century had some great advice for this. Terror stacking through skull spikes, giblet cages, and horrific artwork.
My pussy.
As well as providing everyone with a brand new uniform. With the slaves secure, drug supply stable, our ship timer counts down, giving us the chance to fight the next boss. So with the penultimate boss slain, we take our prize and begin preparations for the final boss. What is our prize, I hear you ask? Well, it's this small vial of green liquid, and I'm sure nothing will go wrong when we Well, shit. Go-juice addiction is probably the most difficult drug to produce. Not only does it require 2 Nutramine to craft, but it also uses up 8 of our Psychite leaves per craft as well, meaning the management of our resources is critical to keeping on top of things whilst we do our final round of exploration. But it's not like we're not gaining any benefits. Go-juice is also one of the most powerful drugs next to Luciferium, giving 50% movement speed, 35% increased sight, and the most potent benefit, it divides all pain by 10, essentially meaning we'll keep fighting forever, at least until we die of blood loss or get shot in a vital organ like the brain or the heart. Upon landing in our new site, we'll take a quick look at the surrounding area and tally up our supplies. We already have the means to begin production on Go-Juice right away, so we'll spend the first 2 days healing up and processing our Psychite. During this, we test out the potential of Go-Juice on a pair of Thrumbos that spawned in, and as you'd expect, we're pretty damn powerful now. With 9 Go-Juice made and 61 spare Yayo to sell, our first task is to hit the 2 settlements for trading. Whilst Tom is out doing that, we expand our ship once again, dedicating an entire hydroponics network to Psychite, using the grav core that we found in the previous chapter.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the traders had no Luciferium to sell. However, the 61 Yayo and all of our collected junk thus far brought us to a total of 3,100 silver. Silver that we used to purchase a healing enhancer from one settlement and a recon helmet from the other. But this other vendor also sells a stone skin gland, a very powerful defensive upgrade that we can apply to Tom, but it costs 2,400 silver. A goal that we can reach fairly easily now that we have 3 entire hydroponics networks, so we spent the remaining silver we currently have on 100 Nutramine. We use this to craft 10 more Wake Up, 20 more Go Juice, and the rest is spent on crafting decent quality medicine so we can keep Tom healed efficiently. It took Tom a total of 4 days to arrive back at the ship, and after dumping off the valuables, we restock our drugs and head back out towards the abandoned warehouse. As Tom sets off on his final trips around this wide world, we can reflect upon the progress made and where we stand 75 days into this journey. And it's really this one location here that secured our victory, as the crates we opened inside the abandoned factory yielded 29 Luciferium, bringing our total to 44, likely securing us indefinitely should we keep on top of production like we have. All that was left was to take on the final boss. And with confidence overflowing, we even decided to poke our nose in the nearby hostile settlement. So yeah, we may be overpowered, but a solo guy juiced up on drugs is still not enough to take down a full settlement. We did, however, nab a pretty good minigun on the way out, not without losing a couple of body parts though. Barely escaping with his life, we'll take our reward and head back to the ship for our final preparations. This prep took a total of 18 days, building up a massive supply of 210 yayo, evening out our drug supply once again. We need even more Nutramine to keep up with our Go Juice addiction. Setting out one last time, we sell our yayo and purchase that stone skin gland for 2,400, buying 64 Nutramine from the other settlement, leaving us with 800 silver, enough to purchase 2 Juggernaut serums, a powerful buff that will further help us with the final boss. After 4 more days of prep, we took one last stock of our supplies and prepare to complete this challenge.
After 10,000 years, that infernal psi field has been deactivated, freeing me from my chains. I am Lucifer, the heart of this planet, and the inhabitants of this world will no longer harvest my flesh for their dominion. All life forms in this universe are mine to consume, and I will seek vengeance for the imprisonment I have endured.
This boss is very much unlike the others. It is not a singular entity to defeat, it is instead a change of storyteller, one that sends waves of monstrosities at the broken down ship that we must survive for 10 days to recharge its thrusters and escape the planet. The massive shift on the planet's ecosystem has also inflicted everyone with high-powered Luciferium need, so we need to spread it evenly around our team to prevent defeat. So what do? Well, we throw our slaves into the blender, but strategically. Obviously, guys, come on, you didn't think you were going to survive.
The containment field has been deactivated. Lucifer has been freed.
We have failed our mission. Activate the planet killer.
The waves work like this. On the 8th hour every morning, a Luciferium heart emerges from the ground and spreads its tendrils at frighteningly fast speeds towards the ship. During this time, twisted Lucifer spawn will slowly overwhelm the map. We can work our way to the core and defeat the heart, but ultimately, the only goal is to actually survive, not defeat the hearts themselves. The first 3 waves were hardly worth mentioning. They begin slow but ramp as we get closer to that 10th wave. So we spent this initial time using up every last resource to build defenses around the ship's perimeter. This also means that our limited Luciferium supply is being rapidly consumed, so 2 slaves were also sent out as a sacrifice on the 2nd day as extra defense, letting them go berserk and slowly being crushed by the demons. It was on day 4 where I thought to myself, hey Moggies, everyone is going to die anyway, so why not just get them high on the extremely powerful drugs that you've hoarded? And you know what, dear viewer? That's the best idea you've had this whole video.
Really?
Now, as day 4 dawned, it was the first real breakthrough of our defenses as a heart spawned very close to the ship and caught another one of our slaves who was grabbing some iron, so I had to pivot slightly from the plan. Originally, I was going to use the 120 plasteel we found to craft some high quality guns for Tom. However, our crafter just died, so instead I pivoted the research towards high powered cannons to use our plasteel and remaining advanced components to build them. As the team finishes building those, the wave on day 5 really got me sweating, presenting us with 40 finger spikes. They quickly overwhelmed the kill box that we had built. Luckily, Tom was out there fast enough to block them from flooding through with his Alpha Thrombos horn. However, a few did circle back around the mountain pass, so we lost the turret taking care of them. By day 6, we were down to just 10 Luciferium, so I used this opportunity to send out the remaining slaves with whatever weapons we had, that being absolutely no weapons whatsoever, leaving Alfred alone to heal Tom at the base, ready to take on the final 3 waves. Obviously, the slaves died almost immediately, but utilizing the kill box we had built, only a few got through and were quickly dispatched by the turrets. On day 7, Tom was still healing and the wave of 10 tri-spikes were barreling down upon the ship, but we still have a few tricks up our sleeve. You see, we have a significant stockpile of chem fuel saved up from our rice farming, and by using Alfred to spread them around, we can create a barrier of fire that should weaken the beasts enough for our turrets to finish them off. This obviously didn't go as planned, and it was at this point I needed to bring Tom out of recovery to clean them up. We only had 2 days left at this point, and the map was looking hideous. Every point of damage we take is devastating for us, and the final 2 days are by far the hardest. Wave 9 introduces the Avatar of Lucifer, a gigantic monstrosity that slowly shambles towards the ship. We scramble around the fires and spend our remaining resources on traps. That was until the unimaginable happened. Alfred is struck by one of the traps and is bleeding profusely. Even with Tom's drug-fueled movement speed, the loss of his leg earlier unfortunately cost Alfred his life. We're left all on our own with still 2 waves to defeat. Luckily, we still have a singular remaining turret, so keeping the beasts within its firing range is going to be our best chance of survival. Fighting through the night and kiting around the Avatar, we whittled him down enough to barely kill him in time for the final wave. 10 Luciferium hearts at once, and with most of the map already covered in flesh, the only place for them to spawn was within the immediate vicinity of the ship. The turret was instantly disabled and the ship was surrounded by flesh very quickly. Only by standing near the door and relentlessly firing our minigun would we stand even a lick of a chance.
Planet Killer engaged. Ready to fire.
Commencing countdown. 10, 9, 8.
And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it because I very much enjoyed making it. The positivity around my style has been really overwhelming, and I definitely feel like I'm starting to grow creatively. So thank you all for your support so far. Anyway, if you're here at the end, I appreciate you very much. So subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.